I'm Celine, welcome or welcome back to my channel, and today I thought I would do a little bit of a book haul and show all the books that I got over the last couple of months. I realise it has been about 2 months since I last filmed a video. I started a new job and then I had to fill in lots of paperwork and do lots of things, and it sort of took me out of the routine, but I'm back now. And I hope once I get settled into my new job, I'll be back to my old schedule of making 1 or 2 videos a week. To be fair, it might still be a little bit spotty, especially over the holiday period, but we'll see how it goes. The first books I want to talk about are books that aren't actually new to me, but they are new in my collection because I took them with me when I travelled to go see my friends and family in the country of my birth, the Netherlands, and I have a large book collection there, and over the years I've been trying to take those books with me to the UK where I live now. So a lot of these books I haven't seen in years, so to me they kind of feel new, even though I did not spend any money recently to actually get these books. One of the books that I brought is The Moonstone by Wilkie. I actually do also have a different edition of this one, so this is a Penguin English Library edition, which I always think look really nice, and this one is like a really nice lavender colour, and lavender is one of my favourite colours. Despite the fact that I own this edition, as well as owning a different edition in a really nice leather-bound hardback, I haven't read this one yet. I haven't read The Moonstone yet, so I am looking forward to it. I think Wilkie Collins, it sounds like the kind of book that I would enjoy, but I just haven't really had the chance yet to dive in. But I'm really looking forward to it, and then I will have to, I guess, decide which edition I want to read it in. I also brought Villette by Charlotte Bronte. I fairly recently read Shirley by Charlotte Bronte, and I had very mixed feelings about it, but I did really like Bronte's writing style, so I'm really looking forward to trying Villette and see how I feel about that story in terms of perhaps values that Charlotte Bronte is talking about. I have no idea whether I'm going to enjoy it or not, but I do really like her writing style, so I'm hoping that Villette might be the Charlotte Bronte book that's the one for me. Next up is one of my absolute favourites, and that is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I've reread this book several times over the years, and I just enjoy it every single time. I think there's something so intense about the plotting. I really like the themes, like the idea of unfulfilled longing and that sort of stuff. I really love this book, and I'm really looking forward to maybe rereading it sometime soon. It helps that it's really thin, so I can read this in like a day or two if I'm like in the mood. Then I also brought with me Madame Bovary by Flaubert. This is also a book that I've already read. I read this initially for my bachelor's degree, and it was one of the books that I really enjoyed. I don't really remember much of what happens in it, so I'm kind of hoping it still holds up, because it's been possibly about, I don't know, 8-9 years since I've last read it. I'm also contemplating whether I might want to try the French original and then maybe read the English alongside of it to sort of help me along, but I haven't decided that yet. Then moving on to the books that are actually new to me and that I have bought in the last couple of months. As always, I had a wonderful time at the used bookstore, and one of the books that I bought there is this Medieval Cookbook, which is, I think, from the British Library or the British Museum. It's from the British Museum Press, and this is just a really, I didn't buy this to read through cover to cover, but more from just curiosity. I just wanted to see, what are medieval recipes like, and it has actual recipes as well as like a little bit of medieval text as like source material, so you can have a bit of a look, what the original recipe looked like. It also has a really nice critical introduction to tell you a little bit about medieval cooking generally, and what's also really nice is that it also has quite a lot of pictures throughout the text. Not necessarily of like the dishes themselves, but like from historical sources. So overall, this is just it's such a fun book. It's also in absolutely excellent state, and I paid $2.50 for it, and I don't know, I'm really looking forward to learning more about medieval cooking. The next book that I bought for just £2, the wonderful deals, is Adam Bede by George Eliot in this really lovely sort of leather-boundy edition. So far I've read Silas Marner, which I quite enjoyed, and I'm currently still reading Middlemarch. I realise that I've already been reading this since October, and I'm getting closer to the end. I only have 200 pages to go, and I am enjoying Middlemarch. So when I saw this book, I thought, let's try another George Eliot. Then I also got this collected edition of some works by William Golding, so this includes Lord of the Flies, Pincher Martin, and Rites of Passage. When I was in high school, there was like this special project that everyone could read Lord of the Flies and then go to see a play about Lord of the Flies, and then they had to write one less report or something. I don't really remember how it worked. But, you know, I was a bit of a rebel, and I was one of the few people who decided, no, I don't feel like reading Lord of the Flies. I'm just going to read something else. So this is one of the books that I actually sort of missed out on, and I never read Lord of the Flies since, and it's just one of those books where I'm like, okay, fine, I've heard people talk about it for so long, and I know the basic premise of it, you know, boys being stranded, things happen, that I just feel like, you know, it's time for me to actually read this book. And this came in a nice collected edition that was also quite cheap, so I thought this was perhaps my sign that it is time to actually face Lord of the Flies. At the used bookshop, I was once again faced with the impossible dilemma of there was a giant stack of books in the same edition and they all looked wonderful and they only cost £2. So I basically bought all of them. The first book I bought in this edition is Ivanhoe by Walter Scott. I already own this book, but I have a used copy that isn't in great state and it doesn't look very nice. But I have been enjoying reading it, even though I have been reading it probably for 2 years at this point. But you know, sometimes you just have to put a book on pause, and that's fine. I just thought that it would be fun to also have a nice edition of this book. And maybe I'll actually finish it soon and find out what happens at the end. Then I also got Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. I don't really know what this book is about. I think this is one of those books that is talked about much in terms of colonialism and sort of racist ideology. The main reason I got this book is just out of historical interest. It might be absolutely awful, but I guess I will find that out once I actually read the book. Then I also got Lorna Doone by R.D. Blackmore, and I think this is a Victorian novel, but that is about all that I know about this book. The next book I got is Black Beauty by Anna Sewell, and this is one of those books that I know about in terms of the cultural context. I think it's one of those that you hear about quite a lot, but I've never really seen anything related to Black Beauty, like no movie, because I thought there was a movie. Sorry if I'm just saying things that aren't true. And I've never read the book, nor like an adapted version for children or anything like that. So I'm looking forward to giving this one a shot. Then I also have The Tower of London by Ainsworth. And Ainsworth is one of those authors that I read a lot about in my PhD because, you know, he was quite a popular writer in the Victorian era. But I don't think I've really read much by him or really anything at all. And for some reason the title, The Tower of London, just sounds sensationalist enough that it just sounds like fun. So I look forward to giving this one a try as well. And I also got Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. Now I have to say, the first time I read Robinson Crusoe, I absolutely hated it. Didn't like anything about it. I thought the main character was just... oh, he just annoyed me so much. But since then, I have read other books by Defoe, and especially his Journal of a Plague Year, which I read, I think, early this year or perhaps last year. I really enjoyed that. So I'm kind of hoping that if I revisit Robinson Crusoe, I might appreciate it more, or maybe I won't. I guess we'll find out. Next up is something that isn't fiction, and that is essays by Charles Lamb. Charles Lamb was really famous for his essays, but they're not really something that I would say is still being read in the modern age, except maybe in academic circles, but it's not really taught much or anything like that. But when you read books from, like, history, books from the period, there are a lot of references to Charles Lamb. So it's one of those authors that I just really wanted to try. I also quite enjoy like a collection of essays because I like being able to read an essay here and there, but because there's no through line, it doesn't really matter whether I read them all sequentially or whether I leave a long period of time while reading it. Unlike how I've been reading Ivanhoe, I think maybe I need to look up a little bit about the plot of that before I dive back into it. I've already read 1 or 2 essays from this collection and I've been really enjoying it, so I look forward to telling you more about this, perhaps sometime soon. And finally, I also bought a couple of used books online, and all three of these are sort of on the same topic. First up, we have Virginia Woolf's Common Reader, which is by Katerina Koutsantoni. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that. And this is an academic work all about The Common Reader, which is a book by Virginia Woolf. That book is a collection of essays, and I absolutely adore those essays. And because I like those essays so much, I was quite interested in reading a little bit of perhaps academic insights into the writing of the essays, the themes that come up, etc. I'm not entirely sure whether it was this one or one of the other books that is going to follow this one, but some of these academic books retail for like £100, £150 depending, because they're mainly aimed at academic libraries. They're not really meant for people to just purchase in a bookshop. Luckily, I managed to find all of these for like £3 to £4 secondhand, which I am feeling very grateful for because there is no way I would spend £100 on one book. In the same vein, I also have Virginia Woolf's Women by Vanessa Curtis. This is an extra library copy, so it still has that sort of weird plasticky stuff around it. I will remove that before I read it. But this was, like the previous book, I'm fascinated by Virginia Woolf, clearly obsessed with it. This book is about the women in her life, and it takes a biographical approach and looks at various women and how they influenced her, for example, her sister, her close friends, other authors, stuff like that. I find it really interesting how authors often are friends with other authors and to see how they've all influenced each other, and I think this is one of those books that will satisfy my curiosity into that topic. And then finally, we also have Diaries and Journals of Literary Women from Fanny Burney to Virginia Woolf, which is written by Judy Simmons. I've got this book because I've been getting more into reading things like memoirs, diaries, journals, autobiographies, biographies, more writing about the lives of particularly creative women. That's basically what I'm most interested in. And this is a scholarly book that looks at various women throughout history, I think mainly from 18th to start of 20th century. The author is really interested in ideas of gender when writing about the self. This book is from 1990, so in terms of some of its analyses, I would say that it's perhaps a little bit outdated. I just think in terms of gender studies, there have been a lot of developments, especially in terms of nuance, which obviously this book can't help it that it was published in 1990 and that hadn't been developed yet. I'm currently reading it and I'm really enjoying it. It's just a really fun, interesting insight. Like every chapter is about a different author, and it contains chapters about Fanny Burney, as on the cover, Dorothy Wordsworth, whose journal I read fairly recently, Mary Shelley, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, I read her poetry recently, Louisa May Alcott, Edith Wharton, Catherine Mansfield, and of course Virginia Woolf. This book has been quite fun and a surprisingly quick read considering it's an academic book. Those were all the books that I got recently. I'm very happy to have many beautiful new books, new old books for me to dive into. And I also hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you're doing really well because I know I haven't been quite as present as I wanted to be. And I hope to see you again in a new video sometime soon. Bye!